It's the Sleepers Podcast. Great guest for everybody today. We got Spartan alum, Spartan dog, Brandon Wood. Brandon, thank you so much for being here, man.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you, fellas.
Sir, about time we got a Spartan dog on this thing, man. Way too much of that Ann Arbor nonsense. It's time to get to the dogs.
Yeah, had to, man. I'm gonna represent for us, man.
Yes, sir.
It does feel good. And there's a lot of good MSU mojo happening right now. We got some staff changes. We got some roster changes. But I think the vibes are good in East Lansing. There's all the pics of the recruits getting to campus. So we got a lot to talk about. But first, I think we got to just talk about Brandon Wood himself when we have the man of the hour on the podcast. So I want to talk through your journey through your college career, really your whole hoop career in general. But I was looking up some stuff in prep for this. I knew that you went to Valpo. I knew you transferred to Michigan State from Valpo. I did not even know that you played at Southern Illinois before that. So I'm curious how your whole career came together. Were you highly recruited? Were you under the radar? And then how did you end up sort of bumping around and then ultimately at Michigan State?
Yeah, for sure, man. First off, man, it's been an amazing journey. Obviously I played with many schools, many universities, and now many countries, but each stop of the way has definitely been special. So coming out of high school, I was pretty much recruited by pretty much all the mid-majors. So I wasn't really highly recruited. I had a great high school career, but was kind of always that under the radar player, kind of underdog, so I always kind of had that chip on my shoulder at a young age. So coming out of high school, it really came down to Southern Illinois and Butler. And, so I went on my Butler visit first, and I was actually planning on committing there. But Southern Illinois had really recruited me the hardest out of everyone, so I felt like I owed them at least for me to go on my official visit, so my official visit to SIU was a week later after I went to Butler. So after we finished up at Butler, touring the campus with the coaches. At the time, Coach Stevens was the assistant coach. So he was coming to Kokomo to my high school gym to our practices like every other day. So that was like at the beginning of his journey. So that was cool just to kind of see where he's at now, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
So, so I was ready to commit to Butler, and, I'm a loyal guy, so I had built a relationship with SIU, the coaches. So I'm like, man, I got to at least go on this visit and then make my decision. So at the time, Butler had told me that, we also offered the same scholarship to Sean Van Zandt. So it's really between y'all two. So a few days later, like a few days before I went to SIU, they called me and said that he committed. So then I kind of just went on the SIU visit, and it was great, great teammates there. So ended up committing, but, I was probably going to be a Bulldog, about 90% sure. But yeah, that's kind of how the recruiting went to get into college. And then once I went to SIU, I kind of went there. I was injured going there. So I had just had shoulder surgery. So I didn't get to participate in the summer workout. So I missed the whole summer. And then I arrived on campus and, for the fall, and, my shoulders healed up by then, but I obviously that's my first experience in college basketball, so being pushed hard as hell every day, just wearing my body down. And I was a young man then, so my body really wasn't prepared for it. So I had a stress fracture in my leg like 6 games into the season, but I was steady trying to play through it, leading up to that. But it kind of just reached that point where, I had to sit down. So that's how I got that medical redshirt year on the back end. So, really, so SIU really wasn't, it seemed like the right fit heading into there, but once I got there, it definitely wasn't the right fit for me. And then based on kind of some things we experienced as young players, having to deal with coaches and the different coaching styles, it really just, it really wasn't a good situation for me. And it was probably like one of my lowest points. So pretty much after sitting out a season, I had to decide whether I wanted to transfer to another Division I or D2 or go JUCO and be able to play immediately. So at the time, if I'd have went D1, I would have had to sit out. So I'm like, man, let me just go somewhere where I can kind of get my confidence back, get the love for the game back. So I decided to go JUCO for a year. Had a great year there. We had a team full of D1 transfers, so it was a bunch of guys that were kind of on the same page. So it was a real smooth year. We won like the regional championship, went to the national tournament Hutch. So we got the full JUCO experience, which was great. Ended up committing to Valpo before the JUCO season even started. So I was already committed that whole season and pretty much, like I said, kind of just really focused on getting healthy, first of all, getting my confidence back, getting my mind back, because at that point I was at a pretty low spot. So ended up committing to Valpo before the season, had a healthy year, went to Valpo 2 years, graduated my second year, and then, had the 5th year transfer rule where I could open up my recruitment. So opened up my recruitment and really just waited to hear from schools. And, that process was, it was being a 4th year, being a senior, having graduated, having had 2 good seasons at Valpo, it was like a dream situation. So it was kind of a no-brainer, but definitely, appreciate that rule.
Oh yeah, that's definitely I think that sometimes people really overlook like how important as a freshman basketball player getting on campus and having that work and getting that first summer of playing college basketball. I mean, I played Division III college basketball, and it's even at that level, it's a whole different beast going from high school basketball to college basketball. And that's what the way you prepare, the way the coaches handle you, everything like that. So, it can.
And I was kind of a late developer anyway. So at the time, I was the skinny freshman, frail, just coming off of surgery, and I didn't have that summer. So I was kind of set back, definitely a setback. But, even when I started playing, like I was playing well those first games, but obviously physically I wasn't prepared.
Yeah, but I mean, you take it's good to hear stories like that when you take your lumps, and you know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of people, you got 2 decisions. You can either stay at that point and, do what you're doing, or you can just, you know what I'm saying, keep pushing, keep your head down, keep working. I think you're a testament to that. And this might be a reach. I don't know, but it sounds to me like you were doing the transfer portal thing before it was even cool. So you started the whole transfer portal business. I mean, imagine, I know you see all the craziness in college basketball going on with the transfer portal, but you kind of started the movement with transferring and, enjoying that recruitment for that extra year, I bet.
Yeah, man, I kind of knew relatively early at SIU that it wasn't the fit for me, and it was even outside of the basketball, just we've all had different types of coaches, and being at that point, it's important for coaches to build you up, and we had coaches that were kind of trying to break us down, not only physically, but mentally as well. So that was very tough, but yeah, man, I went to, 4 schools in 5 years, thankfully still graduated on time. And then, like you said, I kind of set that trend of the 5th year transfer. Because at the time it really wasn't that popular, but the year I did it, Russell Wilson did it as well. So it's kind of like me and him pretty much set that trend off, and to see where it's at now, you see, like you said, you see where the transfer portal is and how many people are in it, but at the same time, I see a lot of people question that, question players going into the portal, but, I kind of have to side with the players, like everybody knows their situation. And obviously these days, we want more satisfaction and players want to have them bigger roles quicker, but if a player feels like it's best for them to keep it moving, much strength and love for them to do that, so, in the business, you got to do what you got to do, even before you get into the real world sometimes.
Coaches always want to shit on players for leaving, and it's always hindsight's 2020. They shouldn't left, but they don't know anything about the situation. And coaches move all the damn time, and it's the players that are playing. So, I'm always power to the players. Let them do what they want to do. That's their decision. They're men. They're young men at that point. Maybe it's the wrong decision. Maybe it is. Maybe it is the right decision. But it's their decision. That's
how you learn. That's how you learn by making different decisions at different times and. Learning if it was a good decision or, but making sure it's an informed decision. That's one thing I always made sure I did, knew what I was getting myself into, knew what could go good, knew what could potentially go bad, but, I kind of always lean with the good, and just, stay faithful and take those risks. Sometimes it's a risk, but those risks bring rewards as well, and I feel like my journey through college is a true testament to that.
Yeah, 100%. I can totally see that. And I think I'm most curious after hearing your journey from your own words. I'm trying to put myself in your shoes almost of what it must have been like to have gone through all those different levels, to have grinded out to a point where, I mean, at that point, you were a highly touted, highly productive player at Valpo, who now all of a sudden has this one extra year, loves the game so much, you're going to take advantage of that. And then I'm just assuming, just thinking through this, but to get a phone call from somebody on the Michigan State staff heading into a season where they've got a guy, National Player of the Year type in Draymond Green, a bunch of talent around you, like what was that process like when you first heard from Michigan State, and did you know right away that you were going to end up there?
Sure, man. Great question. So following each college season, majority of coaches, I'm assuming they meet with the players and their families, So after my second year of Valpo, we had scheduled a meeting for my parents to come up, my sister, we would meet with Coach Homer, Coach Bryce, the athletic director, and kind of just go over my options at the time. I had just graduated. I was a redshirt junior at the time, so I put my name in the draft. So my name was in the draft. So I had some options. I could have not put my name in the draft and just stayed at Valpo for my 5th year and continued into my master's program. I could have kept my name in the draft and just kind of seen what happened. I could have taken my name out the draft, just went overseas. So I had a few options, at that point in time, having just graduated. So prior to that, about a week or so before that meeting, we were kind of made aware of the rule, that 5th year transfer rule. So came time for the meeting. We were meeting with Coach Drew and Coach Bryce, and they were kind of leading the meeting. They were my coaches. They kind of have been through the process, so they were leading the meeting, and they kind of went through those different options that I'd mentioned before. And then after they went through those, my dad was in there. He was like, there's another option that we might be considering at the time. And he was like, the 5th year transfer rule, to where Brandon, since he just graduated, he's eligible to transfer right away and play immediately as long as he just, chooses a degree that's different than one Valpo offers, So, immediately it was a complete shock to the coaches, to the athletic director, and we were kind of on edge, kind of just waiting to see what they would say, really just wanted to bring it up just to be able to talk about it, just to get their advice on the rule and, their advice on whether or not, they feel it'd be appropriate for me at the time. So obviously their first reaction was kind of, in shock, kind of wanted me to stay, kind of questioning, why, whatever. So
they were big sick. I know it. I know they were hurt.
Yeah, no, they were for sure. But once we talked about it and everything calmed down and they kind of heard my perspective, they fully supported me, so it was, a great situation for me just to be, under 2 coaches who I was comfortable with, who I had experience with, who I trusted, who trusted me, so although it might have been misunderstood by them for a moment, or even by some of my teammates or some of the Valpo community, it's like, it was a decision that pretty much right when I found out about it, it was a no-brainer, so it was like, it just had to play out, with the process, but it was, an opportunity that I definitely had to take, and it's really been life-changing.
Definitely. So like during this process, once you finally kind of get to that decision that you're looking elsewhere for the 5th year, what kind of was that, the process of choosing that next location, like, or, going through, I mean, yeah. I'm not really sure how it was back then, but was it really just going through like the recruitment process over again? How'd that kind of work out?
Yeah, it was very similar. So at the beginning, schools couldn't reach out to me. So I had to produce a document that kind of stated that I was transferring. I was executing, doing the 5th year transfer rule. I had to send a letter out to the schools to kind of make them aware that, I was leaving, and then to give them the legal way or appropriate way to reach out to me, given all the NCAA rules and all that stuff, so sent out a letter to like 10 or 15 different colleges, and, just started to hear back, kind of as they were interested. And it pretty much came down to between Purdue and Michigan State. At the time, my dad was working at Purdue. So me being from Indiana, my dad working at Purdue, it kind of made sense, and so it was like I would talk to Painter one day, and then I talked to Izzo the next, and so it's kind of like I was going back and forth throughout the little process. But man, yeah, it was exactly like, opening up my recruiting process, and they kind of were able to pitch the situations to me. I was talking to UConn, Florida State. I remember UConn, I was talking to a representative from there, and he was, that was right after Kimba finished up.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, man, we need somebody to come replace Kimba. So I'm like, man, I probably would have been a smooth look, Yeah, that would have been a good look. But really what definitely made the decision for me, like I said, I was in the draft at the time. I knew I wasn't going to stay in the draft, even though I had 2 great years at Valpo. I was pretty much just in there just to get the feedback and kind of hear from the teams and see what I needed to focus on moving forward. So going through that process, the main things I was hearing is they wanted me to work on my toughness and my defense. So, I never really was the best defender, up until that point, because I really wasn't a committed defender. So, and I wouldn't say I wasn't tough. I could be tougher, but
you was worried about putting the ball in the basket.
Yeah, I was just getting
I feel you.
I'm going around.
That's the name of the game. You know what I'm saying? I know defense is great, but Greg, I always say it. You got to put the ball in the hoop. Like that's
the game.
100%, man. So really after hearing that feedback and then kind of talking to the different schools I could potentially go to, it's like, man, what better option to kind of kill that noise about the defense toughness than to go to Michigan State and become a Spartan. So I was like, I made that decision based on the feedback I had received from the scouts, and it went, as smooth as it could have went, so it was real good.
Yeah, you say
I'm happy with that because I'm picturing you just busting State's ass in Mackey, and that would have pissed me off. That man, that place gives me the chills, man.
I said I bust their ass the year before, so they already knew who I was.
Yeah. I'm going to say, you say defense and toughness, and I'm sure Tom Izzo's ears lit up as soon as he heard that. He's like, well, this is the place for you. And it's funny thinking, like, Izzo and Painter have had their head-to-head recruiting battles through the years, too. And this is one I wasn't even aware of that ever happened, but score one for the Spartans there. So that roster that you come in, like, what are your first impressions when you actually get in the gym and you start to meet some of the guys? What was that like?
Man, so I kind of related to when I transferred from SIU to my JUCO. I was coming in with a bunch of D1 transfers. They were all probably more, I was athletic, but they were more athletic than me, faster, stronger. And like, I remember like the first open gym at my JUCO at Highland, I'm thinking like, man, am I even gonna be able to play here? Am I even gonna be able to keep up, with this level of talent? Yeah, it's a JUCO level, but it's like, these players can play, and they're physically, more developed than me. So I related to that, to where like, man, it was just a whole nother level, to where like I'm on the court with Brandon Dawson, Adrian Payne, Keith Applin, Draymond, even the freshmen, Brandon Kearney, Travis Trice. Mm-hmm. So it's like, man, it was just so much more intense, and way much more athleticism. So where I was like kind of thinking the same thoughts, I knew I was a great player, but it's like, man, I don't know if I'm physically ready, I might not just be prepared physically, but once I got playing and got comfortable in the system, and kind of got adjusted, it was all good, but I definitely had those thoughts like, man, yeah, this another level playing wise, so I had to put in the extra work, like never before.
Yeah. So when we had Matt Costello on earlier, we asked him basically just to tell us, because basically people outside of Michigan State, like the fans and everyone in college basketball, they know Tom Izzo as he's nuts and he's crazy. And Matt Costello basically was like, I mean, yeah, he is kind of nuts and he is kind of crazy. Like, can you kind of talk about like your first interaction with Izzo, or like, kind of talk to kind of what it was like being a player for him?
Yeah, sure, man. So first off, just once I began talking on the phone with him, just that the dialogue leading up to the decision, just man, he just nothing was given. Nothing's ever been given to me, but that's one thing he made clear, that if you decide to make this decision and you feel like this is the best move for you, I don't care what you did at Valpo, I don't care what first teams you were on, what player of the year, none of that. I don't care about none of that. You're gonna have to come here and show that you can compete at this level. You're gonna have to come in and earn my trust. So that I definitely respected that going in, just based on me growing up and everything I've heard about him and the Spartan program and just kind of how he operates as a coach and as a leader. I knew that level of accountability was going to be probably the highest I've ever experienced, which it was. But yeah, man. But yeah, he's crazy, man. He's crazy for real, man. But I'll give you one story, man. So this kind of a story that kind of I like to tell, kind of paints a picture for him, So we were in a film session with the whole team, watching film before the season even began. So I feel like this was probably kind of planned. So I remember Izzo was up there at the front. He asked me what my 3-point percentage was from Valpo the year before. So at the time, like I wasn't the player that, like, I looked at my numbers, but like I really wasn't the player that like understood percentages, and how big of a difference 1% is, or 0.5%, or 2%. Like that's a big difference, over the span of a season. So he asked me what my 3-point percentage was, and I'm like, like 40%. And he looked at me, and then he looked at Draymond, who was sitting like down a little closer to him. He was like, Draymond, what was Brandon's 3-point percentage at Valpo last year? And I forget exactly what it was, but Draymond just instantly responded with it like, 36.6. So then Izzo looked at me, and he was just like, so you fucking lying to me, Brandon? Like, excuse my language, but
you good.
So you lying to me, Brandon? Like you coming here, like, leave that shit at Valpo. Don't bring that. Like, really went in on me. Like, we don't do that as a Spartan. Like, that's not what we do here. Like, he really made a point to kind of drive that accountability and that, just the importance of, the details. That's what it kind of speaks for to me. Just, he's so detail oriented. It's like when I just was thinking I was just rounding up a couple percent, it's like, no, every point, every percentage counts, every 0.1, 0.2, it all counts, So that was before we even started. So that kind of set the tone for what I was getting myself into.
I can just picture Draymond giving that like deadpan response. Like, I know it. Like, I'm right on it. I'm on his ass. Like,
to the decimal point. I'm on his ass. Don't let him say that.
I know they were ready for it. They're like, yeah, he fell for it. They got me. They got me for sure.
No, that definitely had to be a setup. I refuse to believe that Draymond just knew that down to the decimal point on the cue. I mean, I know he's one of the smartest basketball players ever, but I don't know. I don't know about down to the decimal point.
Yeah. Nah, man. But yeah, but like you hear though, man, like, he's crazy and he'll try you, he holds you. It's really just comes to accountability. That's what I've learned. The people that hold you the most accountable, that's who you want to be around. That's who you want to be with. That's who, who you should trust, who really believes in you, because, holding yourself to that level of accountability, having others, that's what's really going to bring the best out of you. So at the same time, when he's crazy, it's like he allows you to kind of try him as well, and yell at him or cuss at him or you know, it's been times when we look like we're about to square up and fight, you know. So it's just the love, though, you know, it's the passion, it's the competitiveness, you know, it's really what makes being a Spartan, you know. But you know, I'm just thankful I was there for 1 year to get to experience that.
Definitely. So you hear that, Greg? I hope you hear that. That's
I
that's all
hear
it
it.
is. Accountability and guys fighting and going into battle. That's all it is.
So we gotta let's go here with this. So we've talked to some Michigan players, we talked to some Michigan State players, and I feel like the one thing that is a consistent theme from the Spartans that isn't from the Wolverines is one, that toughness, but two, it's like almost a family type feeling where like you get through that accountability, you get through the swearing and the yelling and the holding each other accountable, and then it's like you made it through together and you accomplish your goals. Or even if you came up short, like all of a sudden there's this bond of almost like a brother type feel to everybody that's a part of that program. I don't get the sense watching from the outside that that's how it is at Michigan. At least it wasn't during the John Beilein era. It was much more like players are there to do a job, to advance their careers, to become professional basketball players, and both worked. Like we're talking your era of, in my opinion, the greatest rivalry in college basketball, where both teams were making Final Fours, winning Big Ten championships, like really running through the Big Ten. So I guess, is that a correct characterization of that? Like, do you feel a family atmosphere? And I guess looking at the rivalry and only being in it in 1 year, do you notice that difference between Michigan State and Michigan?
I wouldn't necessarily say I noticed the difference between State and Michigan. Man, I feel like that kind of speaks for all the schools, not all the schools, but the schools that are at that level. You know, I kind of put Michigan State with like Duke, you know, North Carolina, Kansas. You know, I don't know if Michigan is necessarily in that conversation, you know. So I feel like all schools and all the universities, especially at that level, regardless of, you know, whether you're in that elite group of schools, you know, or just at the high level D1, it's like, man, it's so much more intense on an everyday basis. Like whether it's making it to classes, making it to study table, you know, make the coaches making sure you're eating right, you know, making it to your weight classes. It's like it's so much more, you have to be so much more prepared. It's like that intensity level has to be so much higher than what you can even imagine, you know. And what comes with that intensity is that accountability, you know. So it's like, it's kind of like, man, all the fighting and the yelling and the, you know, what you speak on to what you end up getting through, it's like it won't always be understood, you know, unless you're really in it, you know, and you experience, you know. There's so many people that kind of look at Izzo's reactions and how he coached us, you know, and they kind of would question it, you know, and even think that we should question ourselves when those of us that are within it support it, you know. So it's like, it's just, man, it's just hard to explain. And I feel like I can explain it the best because I played at all the levels of college. You know, I played at D1, mid-major, a team that came off the Sweet 16 at my freshman year, and then went JUCO, and then went back to a mid-major who had a strong history, and then I made it to the highest level, you know. And the difference is that intensity, you know, and that attention to detail and that accountability, you know. And what comes with that is, you know, higher emotions, you know, stronger feelings, you know. It's all competing, and we're all, you know, and at that level, it's a business, you know. You really recognize and realize it's a business at that level, you know, and that's a big difference from Valpo to Michigan State. You know, when that business is involved and that money's involved, it's a whole different preparation, you know. So that was kind of like, as we were learning the money, how it was involved and how it played a part and how the players sacrificed and all that. But it's like, once that money's involved, you know, once you look back and reflect, it's like it all makes sense, you know.
For sure.
Real, yeah, it's real.
Definitely. So I know you mentioned that Draymond called you out in the meeting, and I know you probably got some wild Draymond stories. Is there anyone in particular that just sticks out to you that you could tell us?
Man, let me
I
think.
know he was on your ass.
Let me think for a quick second.
Was this this may not have been the year you were there, but I remember a Draymond quote because he was injured during the Michigan State game that week. And I remember him basically being asked by the media, like, what would it take for you to miss this game? And he was just like, death. That's all he said. And he got up and left the meeting. I think that was his senior year, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. You know, that rivalry, as y'all know, man, it's the strongest rivalry I've ever been a part of, you know, and even it was another learning lesson that, you know, one of my learning lessons and one of the times where they rightfully stepped up and held me to the highest level of accountability. So when we played at Michigan, at the very end of the game, there was a play where like they got a fast break, you know, and I was like under the rim, so I wasn't up with the break, like with the play, but you could see me in the video. I wasn't sprinting back, I wasn't giving my full effort, you know, and it wasn't consciously, you know, it was unconsciously me just kind of being in the moment, and I ran back, but I definitely didn't give the max effort. Afterwards, when we watched that film, oh man, they let me have it, man. So I think that was another one of the times where they were like, you know, yeah, he's experienced, he's a fifth year, he graduated, but you know, you're a new Spartan, you know, and we have to let you know the importance of this, you know, and I don't think they believe I necessarily didn't run back on purpose. It was just like, you know, as we speak to accountability, it's like you might not even understand, and it might not be consciously, but it's like them holding you to that standard, it's like it's gonna do nothing but make you better, you know, and be more aware, you know. So definitely another learning moment as a Spartan.
I think one of the top 5 experiences as a basketball player, and I think all basketball players know, is one, when you're watching film and you know you fucked up. Like when you fuck up in the game, you're like, damn, once you see this on film, like they're gonna be on my head. Or you're in the film room and you see it and you're like, damn, I wonder if they about to notice this. And of course, they never miss it. Coaches ain't never gonna miss it. No, never.
No, not at all, man. And that's another difference, man, between level to level and even, you know, country to country. Like the best teams I've played on, when I won at a high level, man, every single play they're holding accountable, no matter what happened, no matter if there's 2 players that messed up in the play or 3 players or just 1 player. Like as a coach, and if you want to be a great coach, if you want to win, you're gonna hold your players and your staff accountable every single time. You know, even to a point to where it's like we might not understand as players. You know, we might not like you for a minute as players or as a, you know, co-worker being coach to coach, you know, because that's important too, you know, holding your, you know, staff accountable. They might not understand it, you know, or might not agree, but man, that's the greats, man. They attention to detail, man. That's what
that goes for podcasting too, G. That's why I need you to hold me accountable, because you know sometimes I can get to going.
I know sometimes you get a little sloppy. It's okay.
It just happens. It happens.
It's okay. Well, I'll try to get my Izzo on. I'll cuss you out in the next film session. How about that?
I appreciate that.
So I was working on a draft of an article for, I'm going to plug this shamelessly, but for SpartanHoops.com today. And I'm working on like a season preview of Tyson Walker, who is transferring into Michigan State at the point guard spot from Northeastern. And I'm trying to square, like, from watching his film, he's super dynamic. He's great. He's explosive off the bounce. He can pass, he can shoot, he can do it all. He's also like 6 foot, 160 pounds. And so I'm watching all these videos of, you know, I think it's the CAA is the conference they're in. I don't know how that compares to the Horizon League, but like what's obviously you talked about just the level of intensity and like seeing the physicality in the athletes, but you had success, you got over that hump, whatever that hump was. Like, is that really that difficult? Like, do you think a player of that small stature can come right in and make a day one impact, or is it going to take a little while?
I mean, I believe they could. You know, I don't think, you know, that really depends on, you know, the physical parts, you know, whether he's small or not very heavy or light, you know, or fast or slow. You know, I feel like it's more so that transition is more so a mental transition. You know, at that point, like one of the things when I went to Michigan State, up until Michigan State, I pretty much had always been the go-to player, on every single team I had played on. So at that point, fortunately I was experienced being a 5th-year senior, but at Michigan State, that's where I learned how to play a role, and really buy into a role. And I never really had pride issues, but like kind of put my pride to the side in the sense of me being aggressive at all times and me being expecting to have the ball in my hand, just I really understood where I was at and I really truly accepted that, so I know every role is different. His role being a point guard, he'll probably have a bigger role than I did. He'll have the ball in his hands and be expected to, push the ball and make plays, get the team set up. But I feel like that transition is, as long as he's prepared mentally, for things not to be as easy as it was where he was at, for coaches to test you in the film sessions or to test you on the practice floor or to snatch you out the start lineup for a game to see how you react. It's like, how are you going to handle that stuff? How are you going to handle being at a university like Michigan State, with so many more people and so many more potential distractions and, so much more going on. Like, how are you going to be able to balance that, with school and, now these days, everything that come with social media, I can only imagine how much more intention it takes to stay focused these days. So I feel like that's a move that, as long as he's prepared mentally, he's a ball player. I'm not too experienced or too familiar with his game, but as long as he's prepared mentally and just comes in confident, that's one thing I did. I had those questions, but I was always confident, and, when you're prepared and that preparation kind of meets with the confidence, like then you're good. So I think he'll be good.
Well, and I think confidence is something that I think from I know this from researching for this article, but from the guys that Izzo and staff have honed in on and brought in as transfers, because they don't hit the portal very much. But you look at the history of it, it was Bryn Forbes, then it was just recently Joey Hauser. Like they've had really positive success overwhelmingly with guys that a lot of them were player of the years, just like you were in the conference before you came here. So I think that's Tyson Walker fits that mold exactly. I'm actually super high on him, but it's interesting because I think the mental piece is not what people would expect of what would be the piece for him to get over the hump, but in reality, it probably will be. So that's great insight.
Yeah, man. I mean, at all levels, that no matter what level, there's a mental aspect to it. So I feel like, man, as long as he comes in, has a good group of people around him, who pulling for him, fighting for him, he'll be all right.
Yeah,
for sure.
We on your ass this year, G.
No,
you know that.
So we do got to talk about some staff changes because Michigan State is bringing some former players back into the program. That was just announced last week. Austin Thornton being one of them, Matt McQuaid being the other. I think fans are really excited about this from the buzz that I've seen just on social media. To me, it's always great to get friendly faces back in the program. Again, to do a little bit of a name drop, but our friend Drew Valentine was around as a graduate assistant, worked his way up. Now he's obviously experiencing great success at Loyola. So I think like what Michigan State's been able to do in the past, even like Tum Nairn, who's now at Sunrise Christian, they've had guys who have really high IQs that are just great examples of guys that work their way through a 4-year program, stay around the program, know that family atmosphere, the accountability piece. And I think that's something that's invaluable for staff. So for you, I don't know how well you know McQuaid or Austin Thornton. I'm guessing you probably know Austin Thornton a little better, but do you think that's going to be really impactful going forward for the program?
Yeah, I think so, man. And congratulations to Austin for sure, man. He was a senior that same year. Me, him, Day, and Anthony Ianni. So we all finished up the same after the same year. So, and we actually, me and AT, we were, our lockers were right next to each other. So we, spent a lot of time talking. And back when I was there, like I was speaking on the mental part, you just getting through the daily grind, physical grind, mental grind. AT used to be one of the players, like because I was getting through it. You know, I was good, like handling it, dealing with the stuff myself. But it's always good to have, you know, those teammates around you that can kind of pick you up when, you know, they see you've experienced something that's probably had them down before, you know, or they kind of just feel your vibe and, you know, kind of just pick you up, tell you a couple words and, you know, make you feel better. So AT, I remember plenty of times walking off the practice court to the locker room and just talking for a little bit, him just telling me, just don't worry about it, you know, just that's how it goes, you know, just stay focused type stuff. So, you know, definitely look forward to, I know he's been pulling to get a position there, I believe, for a while since he was there as a grad assistant. So that's good to see him get back in there. I don't really know Matt. I don't think I haven't met him before. So, but yeah, man, just, you know, to be able to keep players like them, you know, players that, you know, AT, Matt McQuaid, who, you know, they were reliable, you know, and coach trusted them, you know, they didn't have the biggest roles, you know, but, you know, the coaches could count on them when things got tough to kind of keep the team together, you know, and kind of keep that balance themselves, you know. So I'm sure as a head coach and as assistant coaches, they kind of look to that when they're in the process of recruiting new coaches to kind of bring up through the system, you know, whether they were a part of the Spartans already or not, you know. So yeah, that doesn't surprise me that those two end up there. You know, the little I know about Matt and the, you know, a lot I know about AT, but, you know, that's great to see, you know, and definitely, you know, look forward to following them and, you know, reaching out for some tickets when I need them.
Sir, gotta get them tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just kind of go back to more of your playing career, you know, just after Michigan State. And I also recently just seen, and you could correct me on this, you just signed to play in Serbia?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay, congrats on that.
Congrats,
I mean,
man.
I was looking at, you know, kind of the places that you played in Hungary, Italy, Lithuania, Switzerland. I mean, you kind of been all over the country. And I know from people that
All
I
over
know
the
that played
world,
overseas.
Kat.
Did I say the country? I'm sorry.
All over
World.
the country.
Thank you for holding me accountable.
Good catch.
That's accountability right there. You
There
seen that,
go.
people?
I appreciate you. All over the world.
That's
And,
important,
you know,
man.
from the stories I've heard from
important
overseas basketball players, I mean, all the experiences are different. So if you want to talk kind of a little bit about that and what your experience has been like being able to see all these places.
Man, it's been everything I never would have imagined, man. Just being able to, my first time going overseas was in 2009. Homer Drew, he sent me, before I arrived on campus at Valpo, he had sent me on a tour with Athletes in Action. I don't know if you're familiar.
I think I've heard of that before.
Yeah, it's like a faith-based organization that goes on like mission trips, and then they'll play against some pro teams in the countries they go to. So before I began at Valpo, that's when I got my first experience overseas. So finishing up at Michigan State, really just I kind of, right when I finished Michigan State, I was training in Chicago, and I kind of got in a little bit of the situation that was kind of unfortunate, and really lost all my workouts. You know, I only ended up having like one actual NBA workout at the NBA team facility, and then I had like one or two more where the teams came to us in Chicago. So I really didn't get to experience the pre-draft workouts, you know, due to, you know, putting myself in some situations around different people, you know, and just finding myself kind of wrong place, wrong time. So I, you know, realized quickly that I would be heading overseas, you know, so I'm like, I didn't really know what to expect. You know, I wasn't really familiar with the different countries or the different leagues. But I do remember prior to me going to Michigan State, I was visiting my family in Pennsylvania, and I was at a barber shop, and there was a current player at the time who was overseas. And I remember talking to him at the barber shop. And at the time he had played in like 9 or 10 different countries and was kind of just giving me his experience on, you know, his situation and his journey to that point, you know. And like I said, like I didn't have any expectations, you know, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I didn't have any pros that were above me from my hometown who I could look up to, you know, so I really didn't have anybody to look up to as a professional, you know. So I really just been learning off experience the whole time, you know. So signed my first deal in Macedonia. Went to training camp for 2 weeks, came back from training camp, played a couple preseason games. And before we even started the regular season, the team released me. So I was like, my first thought was like, I really didn't know too much about the business at the time. So my first thought was just like, you know, okay, keep it moving. You know, what's next? And that's kind of been my mindset kind of throughout my whole life, which has kind of been really one of my strengths, you know, to kind of just be able to keep it moving. So ended up going to Hungary and getting to Hungary before the season even began, and ended up playing my whole rookie season pretty much there besides the training camp, and we won the cup championship, a tournament that's played within the season. And then we ended up winning the Hungarian national championship. So my rookie year, I won two championships, and I won finals MVP. So following my rookie year, you know, I don't know how familiar you are with overseas, you know, that rookie year kind of set me up, you know, a great foundation moving forward into my career, you know, being a winner. You know, overseas, they want players that have won and that have produced, you know. So I've been able to do that pretty much at every level. You know, I've been on some losing teams and kind of felt the negative effects of being on a losing team. But, you know, having a strong foundation and winning early in my career. Then I went to Italy and played really well. And then I played in Lithuania well. So everywhere I played, I've always produced, and ended up going to Switzerland and won 2 more championships. So I had a pretty solid, you know, respectable career. It's kind of been all over the place. If you look at the countries and you're looking at it from a overseas business perspective, you might not understand it. But me, like kind of how it played out for me, after I got released from Macedonia, after training camp, after practice, I kind of realized like how the business was, you know, early. So it kind of allowed me to flip a switch and be like, you know, I'm gonna just soak it all in. You know, I'm gonna just go with the flow. Whatever's next, I'm gonna kind of just ride it out, you know, and go with it. You know, so throughout my career, that's kind of worked in my favor. You know, to where at times when I would be in between jobs, you know, I'll be focused on the community work that I've done. You know, so I kind of developed a kind of favorable mindset for this business, you know, just to be able to not mentally deal with all the bullshit, you know, and all the unprofessional business and everything that comes with it, you know. So although I've experienced a lot of that different stuff in different places, you know, I've played with some good clubs, you know, in general, you know. So I've got a great experience, you know, and man, my wife has been with me the whole time traveling, so we've been able to be in our bubble, you know, have really developed ourselves as individuals, as a man, as a woman, as a couple, you know. So it's man, allowed us to kind of shield ourselves from a bunch of distractions, you know, being from what I've learned here in America, you know, being influenced by so many different things. So like we've really been kind of in a very protected state for a long time. So it's kind of worked in our favor, you know. At the same time, you know, there's some unfortunate parts that come with being gone all that time and being perceived in different ways, you know. So, you know, we got the full experience, but it's, you know, it's been everything that, you know, like I said, everything we never would have imagined, you know. And just to be able to go to another new country in August, you know, it's just another step on, you know, within my dream, man. So definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's definitely good to hear, because I feel like the stigma around it, and I mean, it definitely is true, but you always hear the horror stories about what happens overseas, you know, late payment, no payment, living situations. You always hear the negative stories. So it's good to hear that, you know, you're able to kind of, you know, take the negative situations that you have been in, but you also have some really good ones as well. And, you know, been able to keep it moving, keep it pushing. Having your wife there with you must be very nice. She can never say you never took her anywhere. You take her all over the world. I know my fiance is always on my ass trying to tell them I'll take me somewhere. You've done that for your wife, so that's good to hear. And, you know, it's always it's always good to hear about people having great experiences, but especially a Spartan dog having a great experience overseas. So it's always good to hear. And I know you're getting buckets, so that ain't never been an issue.
Facts.
Appreciate that, man. But yeah, man, it's been great, man. And I've been fortunate to have the mindset that I have, even though I wasn't really conscious of how I was moving and how I was persevering. Like, I wasn't really conscious at the time how that is really a strength, but at the same time, it's like the late payments, the Wi-Fi, like I've experienced all that, I've experienced, everything you can experience, but luckily I've had my wife with me through those times, so I doubt I would have been playing now, and I doubt some of those situations would have panned out how they did if she wasn't with me. So, that's definitely been, one of the greatest parts about being over there, not only having someone to lean on every single day at all times and someone to make it easier on me, but, someone to experience those different countries and travel while we're in those different countries and experience the history and meet the different people and, eat the different food and party in the different countries. We've done all that together, so yeah, it's been everything doing it with her, I definitely don't take that for granted.
So shout out to the Queens.
Yeah, that's what life is all about. Keep the Queens happy. Give them some experiences and good things happen.
Facts.
Yeah, all right. So we asked Twitter and Instagram and just social in general to give us questions. We told them we had Brandon Wood, Spartan Dog, coming on the show. And we got a bunch of really good questions. Thank you to everybody who submitted them. We picked out 3 of our favorites. So we're going to run through 3 questions from the people.
Wait, G, can I get a quick word in before you ask the question?
Oh, go ahead.
So one of the most popular questions was actually who did this graphic with all your jerseys on it? Because people were asking who did that, because that's a dope graphic you got. It's got you in your Spartan jersey and then all the places you played in the background. You didn't make that, did you? You do a little graphic design?
No, I didn't make it. One of my there's a young boy I got connected with who lives in the Dominican Republic, and I reached out to him. He did it, so yeah, shout out to him, man. He looked out.
Oh yeah, he killed it. It was popular. That was one of the most popular things about it. We got the questions, and then it added at the end. Love the graphic.
I thought you were about to take credit for that graphic, card, because a lot of people were saying, "Did Carter make that?" And you hesitated a little bit.
I couldn't do it. I can't content Jack. I wanted to, but I ain't gonna do it. I can't.
Respect. All right. So first question comes from quote not Dan Dockage on Twitter. Favorite place on the MSU campus?
Favorite place on campus. I seen that question too, man. My first thought was campus. Like I was a 5th year senior. I wasn't in classes.
Yeah. There you go.
I was in online classes. So I was really just hooping. So but yeah, man, favorite place on campus gotta be the Breslin Center. Definitely gotta be the Bres, and man, let me think, man. And really right off the campus. I don't know if y'all obviously you're familiar.
I'm from Lansing, yeah.
Ricks, Dublin.
I knew he was going. I was going to ask about Ricks. All right, yes, sir.
Yeah, that counts as campus, right? That's pretty.
Close. Of course. We'll clip that, and that clip alone will single-handedly keep Ricks afloat for a few more months. So thank you for that.
Shout out to Ricks, man. They showed a lot of love back then, man. It was, man, that experience, man, just it's still surreal to me. Just being on the road, playing a road game at Ohio State, coming back on the jet, landing, going, getting clean, doing whatever, going. Man, it was so cool, man. It's like everything you would imagine, like I remember we'd go into Rick's, and man, one time for my bro, I know he's going through a tough situation, Keith Applin, but man, I just remember, we used to spend a lot of time together, and that's my guy, man. That's my little bro. And that's a situation that really hits way closer to home than what you could probably imagine. And a situation that I'll speak on more, moving forward. But man, I just remember us getting off the plane, getting cleaned up. We'd go to one night we'd go to Rick's, and the people at Rick's, they like everybody wanted to meet us, and I had never experienced it at that level. Like I obviously have been a player, and I understand the importance of and the effect that we have, just interacting with people and speaking with people and having that conversation. I understand the importance and meaning behind that. But man, I just remember we'd be sitting at a table and they'd just be sending people through, and they'd just come and introduce themselves, and we introduce ourselves, talk to them, and they kind of just, it was crazy how they just be lined up,
Yeah.
And so it was like just getting experiences like that, having 2 years prior being at a JUCO, and having grown up, watching the movies and hearing the stories of, how it kind of goes, and just getting that experience, man. It was, I loved it, man. I just tried to soak it all in, man. It went so fast now thinking back of it, man. But yeah, man, just times like that, man. That shout out to Rick's, man. Shout out to all those bars, and they all showed a lot of love.
Oh, Rick's is a beautiful place. I don't care what anyone says. It might have sticky floors. It might be a little dirty down there. It might be a little dark. But it's a beautiful place.
Carter went to Albion the years that we were at Michigan State, and Carter made a couple road trips. I believe, I don't want to be throwing you off your cover here, Cart, but mid-season basketball road trips at Albion, making an overnighter just to come to Rick's and the Yale bar scene.
For a person who didn't go to Michigan State, I was definitely first team all Rick's. At least honorable mention. I was in that thing all the time.
Hey man, Rick's used to be jumping, man, and it's like 2 bars in one.
Yeah,
so it's like you on the one side, you checking it out. You know what I'm saying? Okay, you know what I'm saying. Let me go check the other side, see what's going on. So it was cool, man.
I love it.
I'm so happy you mentioned Rick's. I'm so
I know.
happy.
We're just glowing right now. This is great. All right. Second question comes courtesy of Cam Wells 32. She wants to know about your JUCO time. I think you already talked about this a little bit, but what did JUCO ball teach you, and what have you taken with you for the rest of your hoop career that's gone all over the world from that experience?
So my JUCO, it taught me work ethic, like how to really push myself without coaches, without teammates around. It really, that was when I really, like I said, learned how to really push myself, not needing no music, not needing no person or no outside motivation. That was at a time where obviously I needed to gain more strength. I was coming off an injury still, 2 injuries kind of, so it was a time where I had to spend a lot of time in the weight room, and our gym at my JUCO was, our gym was a part of the YMCA. So we could go to the weight room or go upstairs and shoot whenever we wanted to, 24 hours a day. So one of my teammates, actually the teammate who, after he found out I was leaving SIU, his name was Lamar Lee. We were familiar with each other. We grew up with each other in Indiana, playing high school ball, playing AAU. So when he found out I was transferring from SIU, he was at the time transferring from Indiana State. So he was already committed to Highland. So he kind of put me, if he kind of pitched me the situation, and and Lamar, he already kind of had that work ethic. He already had that, that personal accountability, being able to, not cheat reps, and I know people talk about, doing the extra reps and really pushing yourself, but it's like, that shit's real. You know what I'm saying? Like being in, like it goes a long ways if you're putting in work, you're putting in good work, and you're not cheating the reps, or cheating the exercise, whether the team is around or whether, nobody's around, doing that and going the extra mile when nobody's around, like that's really what pays off. Like it sounds cliche, but it's like when you've done it and experienced it, and my work ethic is still getting greater to this day, it's like that's what pays off. So Highland, I was committed before the season. I was able to learn how to push myself, in the weight room. So, Highland was really where I really, took my own personal work ethic to another level. I knew I needed to be ready for wherever my next destination was. And, like I told you in the open gym, I didn't even know if I was going to be able to hang physically, so that's important. Work ethic. That's definitely what I took away from there.
Work doesn't lie, man. I coach a high school team just local here, and I actually got a story from this week that applies right to this. But we got two players who have both received all-state honorable mention. We're small high school in Michigan, but one of them received all-state honors his freshman year, and then for a couple different reasons hasn't played basketball the last 2 years since. He's going to come back out for his senior year. One of them just received all-state as a junior after playing on the freshman team his freshman year, after working his way up, after spending all that time in the gym. We rolled the ball out, open gym, first day of summer ball this year. First time these two are playing in any setting against each other in front of coaches in 3 years. They've grown up the same age group their whole lives. They've both been good hoopers. And It was a big time back and forth, big time competition. Both of them did their thing. I don't think they'll ever find this, but if they do, you both did your thing. But the one who's been there all 3 years, that's our incoming senior, all he did, he hit the game winner, and all he did was look him right in the eye and say, that's that work. That's that 2 years of work you didn't get. And work doesn't lie, man.
That's facts.
Nah, it definitely does, man. Yeah, it pays off, man.
Yeah.
What school you at?
I'm at Comstock High School in Kalamazoo area.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think one of the best parts about that is it really isn't cliche. Like it has become cliche over the time. People like you always see people joking about touch the line. That shit really does matter. Like it really does. When you look at winning teams and teams that win shit, they do little things like that, and teams that lose do shit like cheat reps and things like that.
Yeah,
like it's for real.
In the game, it's always been like my love, my passion is I've been within my destiny pretty much my whole life, so it's like when you're in your destiny, it's like, you hear about the universe, and the importance of the little things. And it's like, you can really become fully aligned with yourself, with your careers, and with others, and with the work is kind of the same way, to where it's like, if you cheat, I can't cheat the work. I can't cheat the reps when I'm in the weight room. Like, even though I'm banged up, like I can't not go to the gym, because I want to continue my favor. I want to continue my good fortune. I've always been big on like, I want the fortune to be in my favor as much as possible. So that's not saying that I'm perfect and I make all the right decisions at all the time as a player, as a man, but it's like, if I'm aligned with it, I want the fortune to be in my favor, so I'm not going to cheat it.
100%. I hope a lot of people listen to this, because I think a lot of young hoopers could learn a lot of lessons from this conversation. And I have to shout out the folks from JUCO Advocate. We interviewed them, our first interview we ever did on the show earlier this year in the fall. They are doing phenomenal work for JUCO athletes all across the world. Giving them opportunities, giving them praise, connecting them with coaches in schools. So I know they've been big supporters of us. Hopefully they see this, because, your story is just another example of someone going the JUCO route, working hard to get to that next step, and then having massive success after. So shout out to the JUCO Advocate folks.
Yeah, most of the time, players, I don't know percentages, of course, but like, I think most players that go to JUCO, they pretty much go directly out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
So to be a Division I transfer going to a JUCO, that's, as you can imagine, that could be even more tougher mentally if you aren't, secure and good with your path, where you're headed. So I'm definitely that's one of the most. I'm probably the proudest of being a JUCO, ambassador now. To be able to. I love seeing the JUCO tweets and being able to be able to represent that, be able to stand up and say, yeah, I play JUCO too. Like I'm really proud to say that, I know that's a grind that a lot of people don't get to experience, and a grind that a lot of people don't make it through, Yep. So I'm definitely proud to be a JUCO product for sure.
Awesome. All right. Last question from the people. This is from Vincent Cook. He asks, as a transfer coming into Michigan State, what was the biggest challenge being a transfer in that setting with guys that had been there 4 years? And then on the flip side, was there anything that you felt was advantageous to you because of the fact that you were a transfer?
I would say it was definitely advantageous considering I was experienced at the time. You know, if I, you know, as you've played throughout years of college, obviously you've experienced more and more. You get a little bit more wiser. You understand yourself a little more, so you know how to handle them situations when they get tough. You know, and even to be able to, you know, for the most part, handle the situations that, you know, you encounter off the court. You know, being able to balance all that. You know, so I feel like I was prepared as a young man. You know, headed into that situation to where I wasn't, you know, I had fun. I had a lot of fun, but I wasn't being reckless. You know, I wasn't, you know, I wasn't, I knew it was important for me to represent the university. You know, first I represent, you know, myself, my family, but I knew that at that level, it was important for me to represent the university and all the players that came before. You know, so I would say that was the advantage I had, was just being experienced, you know, as a player and as a young man. Um, the first part of the question, what was it? What was the disadvantage or what was tough?
Yep.
Uh, Man, really, it really wasn't tough at all. You know, maybe just some of them times where, you know, like the situations we talked before, where like kind of my mentality was tested. You know, where my toughness was tested, where kind of, you know, where it kind of gets thrown in your face sometimes, you know, but it's like that's kind of part of it. It's part of that accountability. So some of those times were kind of tough, but I would say like as a whole, you know, having just graduated, only not having to go to class every day. You know, I didn't have to get up and go to class and, you know, go around campus, go to different classes. You know, the first semester I was in, I had one class on campus that met like on Monday evenings, but the other two classes I were in were online. And then the second semester, both my classes were online. So it was like I was pretty much just hooping that whole year, you know. So it was the schedule and the routine was really in my favor to where I could, you know, wake up, go to the gym, get my extra work in. You know, I could sleep in if I want, you know, just go to lunch and then go to practice 3:30, you know. So it was really a kind of, as I think about it now, it's kind of like a first step of being a professional. You know, it's kind of like I was a pro already that year. So that was kind of, you know, in my favor. Man, I went through some stuff off the court, you know, just in my personal life with my family and some different experiences and situations back at home in Indiana that kind of made it tough, you know, just dealing with just, you know, outside distractions, you know, everything, you know, whether you hoop, you know, whether you manage a podcast, whether you're a CEO of a company, it's like it all comes down to, you know, managing the distractions, you know, whether it's getting too high, you know, or not getting too low when you're going through something, you know. So yeah, just at the same time it kind of speaks to where I was as a young man, just kind of being able to handle those situations. And but you know, I went through a lot that year that, you know, is pretty much not known. But you know, having people like Izzo and, you know, Coach Fife and Coach Stevens and Coach OG, you know, they really, man, not only are they great coaches, what they're greatest at is listening. You know, they're great listeners. You know, that's why they've developed into great communicators, you know, and that's kind of been something I've realized, you know, to where I feel like I've become a great communicator because I realized the importance of listening, you know, but that's because I had great listeners in my life, you know, throughout the years here and there, you know. So man, being able to lean on those coaches and, you know, have them, you know, have our back and, you know, kind of just be that strength that we need in those certain times and kind of step up for us in certain times in different ways. That's one of the parts of being there and being a part of any team, because I've had a lot of coaches that have been there for me and, you know, been that person to lean on. But, you know, as we talk about, the higher the level, you know, the more, you know, the bigger the distraction is, the more attention you have to make and the more intentional you have to be, you know. So to be around that group of leaders, you know, whether it's Draymond, you know, I've been able to lean on him in certain times, and, you know, we've been able to bounce stuff off each other that were going on in our personal life at the time, you know, to where, you know, you just have each other back, you know. So not really any disadvantages, man. I was ready. I was prepared. I was, you know, confident. I put in work. I had a good off season leading up into that. Yeah, man, it couldn't have went, you know, couldn't have went more smooth, you know, being a transfer, having only 1 year there, winning both Big Ten championships, #1 seed. You know, it was another dream year, man. All these years is like have been amazing and dreamlike in their own way, but that was just, you know, as you can imagine, that's bigger than basketball. You know, I'm a part of that network for life to where, you know, now I'm a part of the Arizona Spartans alumni board. I'm on the board out here in Arizona. So it's like that's opened up so many opportunities for me business wise, you know, to continue to build my businesses and my brand, you know. So Michigan State has been life changing, man.
Carter, we're going to have to clip that entire answer, send it to Tom Izzo and staff because they got a couple open scholarships and that transfer portal is still popping right now.
Hey,
so we're going to serve that up on a
you heard it here. You ain't even got to step on campus unless you want to go to Rick's. Go ahead and go to Rick's.
I can't believe that's what you take out of that, of all things. I mean,
I'm just saying. I'm just happy that it's not just me that feels that way. I'm sorry.
Oh my. Well, all right.
And kind of like walking down that staircase.
Hey, that staircase, a double staircase too, because you get to that bottom one and you can think about it and you can go back up.
You're like, which way I go? Right or left? Right or left?
Your footsteps are probably still on that staircase. They haven't cleaned that staircase once since you left.
Nah.
Not once. But it's all love. Ricks, we love you if you're listening. Brandon, thank you so much, man, for doing this. Just from the hour of talking with you, I can tell. I mean, you're such a role model. I have so much respect for everything you've gone through and the grind that you've done, how much you love the game of basketball. It's honestly inspiring to talk to you, man. So appreciate you taking the time. We'll be rooting for you overseas and in everything you do in life, my friend.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man. Thanks for having me on, man. And best wishes for y'all moving forward with the podcast, man. And much respect for what y'all are doing, man. I'm kind of headed the same direction, you know. So I understand the importance of, you know, having this platform and, you know, being able to share your experience and kind of combining with others' experience. So, you know, this is that positivity and that love, and, you know, that, you know, we're all examples in our different ways, you know. So this is what society needs, you know. This is what the world needs, you know. So yeah, man, I appreciate you guys and salute for what y'all are doing.
Appreciate that, bro.
Absolutely. Thank you, man.